If you sing regularly, chances are pretty good you're going to end up singing sick. So what do you do to sing better? Let's separate the myths from the facts. Hey there, I'm Kim Snyder, master vocal coach, vocal repair expert, and creator of thevoiceclub.com. When doctors accidentally severed my vocal cords, and one other time they completely destroyed my voice, I had to learn the hard way that most of what we're told as singers is honestly just not founded in any science. That's why I'm here to help you tell the facts from the myths. Which do you think this one is? You get sick, they say, take over-the-counter medication. Just get rid of that gunk. You'll feel better. You'll sing better. It'll be great. Is it true or false? Well, I wouldn't give this one an F, but it's kind of mostly false. Here's why. While there are a few things over-the-counter that will actually help to fight the symptoms of a cold or a virus, and there are a couple ways to help you feel better in a way that will improve your singing, most of the stuff over-the-counter is a big, fat F. In fact, if you're singing a lot and you're sick, you're probably taking a lot of the wrong things. And if you do it enough, you might be seeing me as a vocal damage case. I've got a short list of everything you should avoid and what you should seek out when you're singing sick. That's coming up. But first, like and subscribe. YouTube's robots require it to not hide us. And besides, it's like holding up your phone at a concert when they play your favorite song. It's just a nice thing to do. How about this one? You should humidify the air around you if you're sick. True or false? This one is true, but more importantly, let's find out why. Most of us are more prone to sickness during the winter, and the air is drier during the winter. Our bodies are over 97% water, and your vocal folds are as thin as tissue paper. When they vibrate together, they actually move so fast that our current cameras cannot slow down enough to catch them in action. That's pretty fast. The only way they can do that is by staying really slimy, and that requires hydration. When we're sick on top of dry weather, that slippery surface can get really, really thin. And then when they vibrate back and forth, they can get chapped. And then when you go to sing, things that would feel normal suddenly feel hard. When all of that action happens without the moisture it needs, in high use cases, it can cause bleeding blood vessels. Not a good thing. Now, while the solution to this is hydration, however much water you think you need to hydrate, triple that amount and start 2 weeks earlier. Because your voice does not work in a vacuum. Your whole body needs to get rehydrated. But on top of hydration, humidity is a bonus effort. Like very few things, we can actually target the airways, and the vocal cords are inside the airway, by getting that humidity into our mouth, nose, and throat. It definitely helps in a way that'll make you feel better about singing. And if you live in a dry climate or you go sing in one, a humidifier becomes your absolute best friend. That's why Celine Dion got a lot of flack for buying a $2 million humidifier. I'm totally on Celine's side. Think of it this way. If you had thousands of people whose livelihoods were all based on your vocal performance and you live in the desert, you need to do everything you can to keep the humidity high around your voice at all times. The reason Celine still has a show today is because Celine Dion has always been one of the smartest singers when it comes to vocal health. Do you need a $2 million humidifier? Well, how many families are supported by your vocal career? If it's just you, you can just spring for a $20 one. We've heard that when we're not feeling well and we have to sing, we should avoid those exercises that really irritate the mouth or the nose or the throat, or maybe all of them. What do you think? True or false? You might be surprised to find out that this one gets a big F. Why? Because your vocal anatomy just simply does not work that way. So many vocal tips focus on the non-singing parts of the body, like feeling it in the mask. Before we had the science to prove otherwise, all vocal advice centered around what we could feel and do, whether we felt it in the mask or we felt it in the big belly breath and the diaphragm. But we happen to know exceedingly more now. It's just that the old advice has been out there longer. The reality is there is no vocal exercise that I've ever seen that is going to make you sing worse because you're sick. However, there are many vocal exercises I've seen out there that do absolutely nothing for you, or if taken to the extreme, can actually cause new vocal problems, and if taken even further, vocal damage. So yeah, avoid those all the time, not just when you're sick. We've heard we should steam our voice if we're sick. I grew up with a mom who had a classical vocal degree, and I started traveling with the family band at 4. So anytime it was cold season, we had the towel over our head until we could see the drips dropping off our nose. We did it a lot. But scientifically, did it help my voice? Let's find out. This one actually is backed up by science, and it's all about the moisture. Humidity and hydration are your voice's very best friend. Making it warm is a comfortable factor for other parts of the body. Doesn't affect the voice per se, but why not make them all feel better? All right, it's time for you to post the worst vocal advice you've ever heard anywhere. I'll put it in a future video and answer it for you. But now we're moving on to this one. We hear that you should take your warm-up a little bit easier because you're not feeling well, you're under the weather. Is this true or false? This one earns the F. Sorry. I like to get out of a workout just as much as anyone else. But the truth is the truth. And here is the glaring truth. If you're doing a typical warm-up, whether it's one that we can prove is scientifically useless for the voice or one that is incredibly beneficial for the voice, if you don't know what it does in the voice, if you don't understand what your vocal anatomy needs and doesn't need to be bothered with in order to improve, and if you're not given a way to prove that exercise in your voice to see if it's true, then it is functionally useless to you anyway. In that case, technically, I can make an argument for skipping that workout. Yay! But this piece of advice is especially false if you're doing the right workout. If you know what it's supposed to do in your voice, you know how to test it, then it is essential that you not only do it, but probably do 2 to 3 times as much of it, because that workout is going to be essential for you to discover what your temporary obstacles are with your illness. What doesn't sound as good as it used to? What bugs you so much that you don't want to put it out there? And what are you going to change in that song to do something different that is easier given your temporary situation? For instance, normally I'm a low tenor all the way to a first soprano, but on the first day of a cold, I am a bass. That's right. So if I'm singing a song where I like to style with a bunch of high stuff, and I know I'm going in the first few days by the time I sing, I'm going to replace those optional parts with things that are much lower in my register. Why? Because I got extra low notes. Why not enjoy that for a little bit? Besides that, the high ones, not going to sound so good. Even if no one else notices, I'm going to notice, and I'm not going to feel good about it. That's important information. That's what your workout gives you. One little caveat though, I work my singers hard like a gym trainer. If you're working with one of the few vocal coaches that really does understand the current science of the voice, they're going to automatically change your workout for you when you start to get sick. They're going to change anything that can put any undue strain on your voice, considering the limitations they know you're going to go through. And that's a real specific process. That's why it's best left to the pros. But as a general rule, work out. You probably aren't doing it enough. We've heard advice that says if you're going to stay hydrated, it should be with hot beverages and hot food. It's better for your body when you're sick. What do you think? True or false? I know. Old me believed this one, but it's really actually not true. The reality is that your vocal anatomy is tightly packed away inside your breathing tube. It is not affected by the temperature of anything we eat or drink. That bypasses over the epiglottis and goes down your digestive tract. Well, you can make the argument that drinking hot things or eating hot things feel a little bit nicer. Sure, but it doesn't affect your voice. I like to eat and drink hot things when I'm not feeling well too. I'm just saying it's not because your voice needs it. We hear all the time that we should drink lemon and honey. This is centuries-old vocal advice. But now that we know all that we do, is it true or false? I think you'll be surprised. This one is true, and I'm so glad because I love me some lemon and honey tea. But why? Honey has been used for thousands of years in Eastern medicine and all over the world as an antibiotic and as a tissue lubricator, which is a very key thing when we're talking all those tender little tissues in the mouth and the throat before the airway. And especially if you got a cough, all that air going in and out of your mouth is drying out all those tissues. Honey has been proven to have a small topical effect for those tissues, as well as an internal effect on the whole body. So it's good going down, and it's good after too. But what about lemon? For decades as a professional singer, I skipped the lemon because it's acidic, it's drying, and that just doesn't make sense. After I learned I had LPR, which is kind of like GERD on steroids, and worked with 12 specialists to try to get the acid level down in my esophagus so that it wouldn't burn my vocal cords, one specialist got brought onto the team that said something that changed everything I think about lemon. It turns out that highly acidic lemon, once it enters the digestive tract, becomes a neutral and actually begins neutralizing acidity. Lemon became my very best friend, and we're still very close to this day. So while used topically, lemon can be caustic and drying. Once it gets into your system, that drying property really becomes more of a clarifying property to get rid of mucus and gunk. Ooh, we don't like those. So bring on all the lemon and honey you can. Does it need to be hot? It just depends if it makes you feel better. So what about a list of what you should take and absolutely should avoid at the store when you're feeling sick? When a singer overlooks an aisle of cold medication, I can pretty much guarantee that 90% of everything on the shelf is going to cause a problem for you. Usually because we tend to overdo it because we're sick and we have a deadline and we have things we have to sing and we have to get rid of it fast. But the more you take of the wrong thing, the harder singing becomes, and most of the effects they cause give us a false sense that we can go ahead and sing like we normally do. And when we do that, usually we cause some vocal problems. You don't want that. So to stay away from all that, you only need to remember 2 things. Number 1, menthol is not for singers. Menthol is in almost all cough drops, in a lot of cold medications, and in some cold pills as well. Menthol works because it dries up mucus, it dries up phlegm, but it does it by decreasing moisture all over the body. And that's exactly the problem we started with. We don't want to make it worse. What's the second one? Anything that has the word drying anywhere in the information. If it says drying, guess what? That just means it's a combination of a bunch of other pharmaceuticals that do the same thing, but worse than menthol. If you're not singing and you love that stuff, use it all you want. But if you've got to sing, your vocal health is really put at risk. Now is not the time to take those. What should you take? Here's the list. If you got to sing, and you think you're coming down with something, the first thing you do is stay away from germs. We tend to think, oh, I'm already coming down with something. But you can actually pick up a lot of other viruses while you're in that weakened state. So shut yourself off from all germs as much as possible. The second thing you want to do is prioritize self-care. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to be drinking tea and honey 20 times a day, and it doesn't mean that you need to sleep 12 hours a day. It just means that you need to think of yourself as a needy baby, and then look at your calendar and say, how much time does the baby need to get what it needs? And it's your job to make sure it happens. And the third thing you want to do is this. Do not skip the right warm-up. If you have a warm-up and you know what it's supposed to do for your vocal anatomy, you know how it's supposed to work, and you've been given a way to test to make sure that it's working correctly, then there is nothing more valuable while you're sick to get the information you need to sing better when you're sick. On those days when, let's just be honest, you skip your workout because you feel like you can, because you're not feeling well, I've done it too. Just replace it with twice as much of the right warm-up. If you've been trained on how to use vocal exercises as assessments for how your physical voice is doing, this gives you all sorts of information. You can find out exactly where new weak spots in your range are because of your congestion or the mucus. You can discover new parts of your range that have opened up that aren't usually there when you don't have a cold. And that allows you to find new ways to style a song that will make you feel much better about it. But let's just be real. Nobody ever sings perfectly, even when you're in perfect health. So don't put it on yourself that, oh, it didn't sound as good as usual. Do your work ahead of time, make smart choices, and then you're in control again. Use your warm-up. An example of a good warm-up would be like a bubble slide. We do the roller coaster woo and a few other things we designed just for this purpose. And when you do them, you're not just doing them to do them. You're doing them to feel what's different in your voice. To say, where are the most comfortable places? Where are the most uncomfortable places? And don't cut it short, because as the vocal muscle gets warmed up, you'll be able to feel that some of these issues will lessen a little bit. Some of them will stay because of the cold, but some of them will ease up a little bit. That tells you where your hardcore obstacles are, and the other parts that you know you can warm up and get through. And if you do this right, almost all the time, no one even knows you're sick. But what should you take? The singer's number one go-to is throat coat tea. Now, the brand is not magic, but what is magic is what's inside. And that is 2 centuries-old ingredients that have been used for throat problems forever, before we even had otolaryngologists. That's a vocal surgeon. Throat coat tea is magic because of slippery elm and licorice root. These are like WD-40 for a creaky voice. It works just the same, hot or cold. But I just wish they'd make the tea bag stronger, because in about 20 minutes, the tea bag dissolves and it's just gross. If you're doing a musical, a concert, an entire show, you're a worship leader, you're a worship singer, you're singing several songs, throat coat tea is one of those things you want in your bottle of water on the platform. It will save you between songs. But let's say you hate that licorice root taste. That's when you grab for a Thayer's throat product. Thayer's uses both licorice root and slippery elm, or some combination thereof, in I believe all of their vocal lozenges and products and sprays. And they come in a variety of different flavors, so you can get the benefits without that taste. However, it's very awkward to be singing with a lozenge in your throat or to be spraying in between. The spray is great for the studio, but I'm just saying, something in a water bottle is probably going to be your best friend on the platform. Another thing you should never take on the platform, but you should definitely take before you head out, is the classic old disgusting neti pot. I hate it too. But saline is for sinuses. I tend to get sinus infections, and this guy has saved me more than once. I used to think that taking saline would be drying to the body too, and I avoided that as a singer. But the truth is, it's supposed to go up one side and out the other. It would be tons less drying than any of the over-the-counter medications that have drying products in them. But you should know it doesn't help for a long time. So this is great to do just before you're getting ready to go to your performance to give you that little extra edge. Ooh, bonus tip. If you have a good chiropractor, there's something that they can do that will remove all of that gunk for up to 24 hours. Works like magic. They're stimulator wands. The electrical pulses actually dissolve all that gunk. You can feel it draining out, and it stays gone, like you're clear for 24 hours. It's magic. So if you got a good chiropractor, ask them about that. And this year I've added something to my list for my singers, and that is the Ricola Throat Balm Drops. Now, all the Ricola products are natural, and that's wonderful. I had just finished doing tons of research on medicinal plants the last time I got a cold. I was out of town, I didn't have any throat coat, and I was surprised how well these worked just on their own. I'm totally sold, and I'm adding them to my list for all of my singers. You technically can sing with these in your throat. I'm not going to suggest it, but I have done it. What I want for you is to become a smart singer. I want you to know the latest medical science of how the voice actually works, what it needs and what it doesn't. And if I've learned anything the hard way, it's to question absolutely everything. You should never take any vocal advice from me or anyone else unless you understand how your voice really works and you're given a way to prove it's true for yourself. Because unlike a musician who can go pick up a new guitar or keyboard any day, you and I only get one voice. Train your brain and the voice will follow. That's the Voice Club method. Now get out there and sing.